shadow on our mountain hike. It was a crisp autumn afternoon when my friends and I set out on what was supposed to be an unforgettable hiking adventure in the heart of the mountains. We were a group of experienced hikers, united by our love for the outdoors and the thrill of conquering nature's challenges. Our destination was a remote and rugged mountain area that promised breathtaking views and a deep sense of solitude. Little did we know that this hike would leave us with a memory that chilled our spines to the core. First night was calm and uneventful. We gathered around a crackling campfire, sharing stories and laughter before retreating to our tents for some much-needed rest. Sometime in the middle of the night, I awoke to an eerie sensation. My heart raced as I lay in my sleeping bag, listening intently to the sounds of the forest. The usual symphony of crickets and owls had fallen silent, replaced by an unsettling stillness that seemed to hang heavily in the air. I dismissed it as my imagination running wild, attributing my unease to the unfamiliarity of the surroundings. Just as I was about to close my eyes and drift back to sleep, a faint rustling outside the tent caught my attention. My senses went on high alert as I strained to hear more clearly. The rustling grew louder and more distinct, accompanied by soft, uneven footsteps that seemed to be circling our campsite. With a mix of fear and curiosity, I unzipped my sleeping bag and cautiously unzipped the tent entrance. My heart pounded in my chest as I peered out into the darkness, my eyes struggling to make sense of the shadows that danced beyond the reach of the firelight. And then I saw it. A looming, indistinct figure cast against the trees, its shape twisted and elongated in a way that defied any logical explanation. It seemed to sway and shift with an otherworldly fluidity, like a specter summoned from the depths of a nightmare. My breath caught in my throat as a shiver ran down my spine. I retreated back into the tent, my mind racing with a mix of fear and disbelief. I whispered to my friends, waking them one by one to tell them what I had seen. Their expressions turned from groggy confusion to wide-eyed concern as they listened to my account of the haunting figure outside. Gathering our courage, we decided to confront whatever it was that lurked in the shadows. Armed with flashlights and trembling resolve, we unzipped the tent and stepped out into the night. Our beams of light cut through the darkness, revealing the empty expanse of the campsite. But the ominous presence had vanished, leaving behind only a lingering sense of dread. We spent the rest of the night huddled together, keeping watch and sharing nervous whispers. As dawn broke, we mustered the courage to explore the surrounding area. There were no signs of any disturbances, no trace of the eerie figure that had haunted our night. To this day, I can't explain what I saw that night on the mountain. One thing is for certain: that experience forever altered the way I view the wilderness, reminding me that even in the most serene of landscapes, there can exist a darkness that defies explanation, waiting to test the limits of our courage and sanity. The glare of the woods. I've always been an avid hiker, and my boyfriend and I decided to embark on a thrilling adventure deep into the heart of the woods. The idea of disconnecting from the world and immersing ourselves in nature's embrace was exciting, but little did we know that this particular trip would turn into an experience that still sends shivers down my spine. We arrived at our chosen campsite just as the sun was beginning to set. As darkness settled in, we set up our tent, lit a small campfire, and exchanged stories as the stars blinked above us. But as the night grew deeper, a chill began to creep into the air. It wasn't just the temperature dropping. It was an eerie stillness that seemed to suffocate the surroundings. My boyfriend and I exchanged uneasy glances, feeling as though we were being watched by unseen eyes. I laughed it off, attributing our unease to the overactive imaginations. And we decided to head into the tent, hoping that sleep would shake off our jitters. However, sleep didn't come easily. The rustling leaves and distant hoots of owls kept us on edge. And then it happened. In the dead of night, I was jolted awake by a strange, guttural sound that seemed to seep through the walls of our tent. Heart pounding. I woke up my boyfriend, and we listened in terror as the noise grew closer, echoing through the trees. As if in response to our fear, the night turned even darker, and a thick fog rolled in, shrouding the tent in an otherworldly mist. My boyfriend grabbed a flashlight, and with trembling hands, he unzipped the tent just enough to shine a beam of light outside. What we saw next will forever haunt my nightmares. Emerging from the fog was a towering figure, its form barely distinguishable, but for the two fiery red eyes that pierced through the darkness. It stood there, unmoving, its gaze fixed on us with an intensity that made my blood run cold. Frozen with fear, we could do nothing but watch as the figure lingered at the edge of the campsite. The red eyes unblinking, unrelenting. It felt like an eternity before the figure finally turned away, retreating into the depths of the woods as the fog swallowed it whole. Morning came, and with the light, the atmosphere seemed to shift back to normal. But the memory of that night's encounter still hung heavy in the air. We packed up our campsite in record time, not wanting to waste a second longer in that unsettling place. The memory of the black figure with red eyes lingers in the back of our minds, a chilling reminder that there are things lurking in the darkness that defy explanation. The Blackwood Mountain. It was a clear and starry night when a group of us embarked on a daring adventure to hike the famous Blackwood Mountain. Excitement buzzed in the air as we set up our camp, sharing stories and laughter around the flickering campfire. Little did we know, the night would take a sinister turn that would forever haunt our memories. As the hours passed, fatigue began to creep in, and one by one, hikers retreated to their tents, leaving only a few of us by the dying embers of the fire. I couldn't resist staying up a bit longer to savor the tranquility of the night. That's when it happened. A blood-curdling scream pierced through the silence, slicing through the air like a knife. My heart raced as I looked around, trying to pinpoint the source of the chilling cry. The other hikers emerged from their tents, their faces pale with fear, mirroring my own dread. "Did you hear that?" someone stammered, their voice barely above a whisper. We all exchanged worried glances, frozen in place by the overwhelming sense of unease that hung in the air. Another scream followed, more desperate this time, like someone was in agonizing pain. It echoed through the trees, seeming to come from every direction at once. We grabbed our flashlights and headlamps, scanning the darkness for any sign of the person in distress. The forest was dense, and the shadows seemingly alive as they danced in the eerie light. We moved cautiously, calling out to the unseen person, hoping for a response, but only receiving chilling echoes in return. Time seemed to stretch on, our sense of direction becoming muddled as the forest closed in around us. Just as panic threatened to consume us, the screams ceased, plunging us into an unsettling silence. It was as though the very forest was holding its breath, waiting, and then a whisper, faint but unmistakable, slithered through the fog. "Help me." Our flashlights trembled as we frantically turned in the direction of the voice. There, in the pale glow, we caught a glimpse of a figure, hunched and shrouded in darkness. Adrenaline surged through our veins as we rushed forward, but with each step, the figure seemed to recede, slipping away like a mirage. Fear clenched my heart as I realized that we were no longer in control, that something malevolent had ensnared us in its web. With every ounce of courage, we turned and fled, retracing our steps through the foggy labyrinth. The haunting sounds pursued us, a cacophony of torment that seemed to follow us even after we escaped the woods. As we stumbled back into our campsite, the first rays of dawn began to pierce the horizon, dispelling the fog and revealing the forest in its usual serenity. It was as if the night's horrors had never happened, but we knew better. The screams, the whispers, the twisted laughter, they haunt my dreams, a constant reminder that on Blackwood Mountain, even the most serene landscapes can hide unfathomable darkness.